Hello and welcome to Minor Rex. I'm Charlie, and I'm today joined by Ariana, Annie, and David as we discuss The Queen's Gambit, a limited series now available on Netflix. It's a show based on a novel by Walter Tevis, which follows the coming of age of Beth Harmon, a young orphan who develops an incredible aptitude in chess, and her quest to earn the title of Grand Master, the highest honor in competitive chess, while at the same time struggling with familial trauma and self-medicating with drugs and alcohol. Since the show's release this past October, it's sort of become an instant hit. Netflix, which sometimes has a reputation for keeping its viewing numbers close to the vest, actually did announce that The Queen's Gambit is now their most watched scripted miniseries. I still have my suspicions that the word scripted is doing some heavy lifting there. Like, that could still mean that it's only half as many viewers as Tiger King, for example, but it's still a pretty impressive achievement. So, what did we all think about The Queen's Gambit?
Well, I personally really enjoyed it. I'm David, and I don't normally watch a lot of really long TV series like this, and this was not that long, and I kept hearing people talk about it at work in particular, so I was going to give it an episode or two, and I discovered it has Anya Taylor-Joy, who is the main character in it, and I'm familiar with her from her role in The Witch, which I just recently seen for Halloween, and I thought she did a great job in that, so I was really curious to see her play a totally different role. And I immediately got sucked into this series and basically watched the whole thing within a week or so. And I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a brilliant piece of TV. It was just the right length. It was just the right pacing. And it was a really wonderful story. I just want to give a shout out too that the book itself, if anybody is interested in reading it, is available on Hoopla as an ebook. So if you have your library card, you can check out the book for free. I have not read the book, but I am considering it. Sometimes I like to do that after a movie or TV series just to get a sense of more of the background material.
Thanks, David. I did not know that it was on Hoopla. I've been on a very long hold list, I think, for the actual book.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think there is a book called The Queen's Gambit that we have at the library, but it's not the same book. There's a different book called Queen's Gambit about one of Henry VIII's wives. So double check the dust jacket to make sure it's the right Queen's Gambit.
Yes. And there's actually about 4 different books called The Queen's Gambit on Hoopla, and only one of them is this one. So, but it is on there.
So I kept seeing this show up on the Netflix ads, and I was kind of resisting for some reason. I was like, I'm not going to watch it just because Netflix tells me to. But then, like David, a lot of people recommended it, and I just loved it. I haven't heard a bad thing about it from anyone. It's fun to watch. It's actually even fun just to look at aesthetically. They did a lot of good artistic choices, and the outfits, the fashion.
Yeah, I agree. I liked it as well. Don't have anything bad to say. I think it got me through the whole thing, which is hard because I'm not much of a binger. I'm notorious for starting a series and just stopping in the middle and not finishing it. I've done that for so many. But this one I did. I watched it, I think, in 3 days. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like Annie said, the fashion also got me. I really loved watching that. And it was interesting to see too, because I used to play chess when I was younger, but I would always just kind of attack I would just get as many pieces as I could. There was literally no strategy to it until I just took all the pieces till there was nothing left for the other player to do. And so they would just say, all right, we're done. But with this, I didn't know there was different strategies you can memorize and do, and that the Queen's Gambit was a move. So I thought it was all very interesting because it opened up a world of chess that I didn't realize.
I'm curious if anyone in here is a regular chess player or a good chess player. I am not. And one of the things I liked about the show was it kind of educated me a little bit about chess, but it also didn't overwhelm me with it. And that was one of my apprehensions going into watching it is, it's going to make me have to learn all about chess. And I didn't want to have to do that. I've played chess a number of times growing up, and I kind of always didn't like it just because it made me feel dumb. So I am glad that I was able to learn more about it while also not feeling like I had to play it.
Yeah, I remember before watching it, my friend was telling me, it's about chess. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to watch that. And then she went on to talk more about it. She's like, the main character's an alcoholic and a drug addict and an idiot savant. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. So I feel like they do a good job of making a show about chess while not having that necessarily I mean, it's the focus of it, but in the same way, I don't know if you guys ever seen The League.
Yeah.
Which was it was like a comedy show about these guys who play fantasy football. And the whole time it's more about their relationship than actually fantasy football. I mean, like, it's more about like, oh, we won this, so we're going to take you out for a drive. It's just like the shenanigans they get into, but like you never actually watch a game. You don't have to talk about football. Like, any of that is great to me. So it's kind of interesting that the focus is chess, even though it's not too chess-centric, I think.
Yeah. I was also a little skeptical about it because I am not a chess player and only have glancing familiarity with chess terminology. In fact, when I first heard about the show, like, I didn't initially recognize the Queen's Gambit as an opening move in chess. And so I conflated it with The Crown, which is a very different Netflix show with a regal title. Like everyone else, it came recommended by people whose opinions I trust. And so I watched it and it hooked me in like everyone else. I think it really deftly handled a lot of the things that I was most worried about. One of which is, as you mentioned, it's not dependent on knowledge of chess to enjoy it. Another thing that I was actually a little concerned about was having different actresses play the role of Beth in different time periods. You know, a lot of shows that hire child actors to play the younger versions of the main characters do such a ham-fisted job with it. I'm not disparaging the quality of those child actors. It just means that inevitably there's a point in the action where they switch actors, and the main character is suddenly 2 decades older, and nobody on screen acknowledges it, and it takes you out of the moment, and it's hard to suspend your disbelief. I'm not sure why it is this show did that so seamlessly. Maybe it's because there are actually 2 actresses playing young Beth. There's one who plays 5-year-old Beth and one who plays like Beth as a young teenager. Maybe it's because they are really utilized only in the first episode for the most part. And so when Anya Taylor-Joy becomes Beth in the second episode, it's less jarring.
I think it's also because they cast it well. I mean, I think the casting people chose people that really did it well. And I think also when it's a really seamlessly set story with really tight sort of thematically, like the colors and the costuming and everything in the background blended from one scene to the next so well that it really just carried the characters through it as well equally. And I think it really helped make you not even think about it.
Yeah, I think that the young actresses who played young Beth were actually really good at capturing a lot of the same like facial expressions. And I mean, obviously the redheaded Bob is such a instantly iconic look that is just visually striking. But yeah, I think that both actresses captured a lot of the nuances of this role.
Yeah, I think there was this believable consistency with their diction because they're very sparse with their words. Even as she grows up, you see, even during the chess games, like so much emotion is conveyed wordlessly.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good point that I kept seeing as well, is like how much you can just see by the way her facial expression changes minutely, just subtly, or how much is conveyed in her just looking at the board in a different way. And you just kind of pick up on a lot of that because they show a lot of really close-up views of her face as she's looking at things or very subtly reacting to things.
I think that's interesting too. Like, I guess I didn't realize how little is actually said by her. Because she doesn't say much. It is more kind of in how she reacts to stuff and like what she does. I'm curious, what did you guys think of her as a character? Did you like her? Did you dislike her?
I actually like pretty much all of the characters in this because they are nuanced and they're not heroes or anti-heroes. There's a lot of shades of gray and moral ambiguity. And one thing sort of interesting, I read that Walter Tevis, the author of the original novel, referred to it as a tribute to brainy women. I think that that's sort of an interesting through line that goes not just through Beth, but also her mother and her stepmother, who I also think are very interesting, very nuanced and interesting characters. That sort of goes into the feminist undertones to the series and the book, because the show is, for the most part, set in the 1960s, and that time period was a lot more openly dismissive of women or misogynistic. At the beginning of the show, yeah, Beth is told point blank, women do not play chess. Or if they do, they only play other women who play chess. And one of the things that's so satisfying about the show is that she overcomes so much of that attitude by just being so undeniably great at what she does, it's a lot harder to make the argument that women aren't good chess players when you see a woman handily besting every one of her opponents.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised how confident she was, even early on when she was just sort of learning how to play. She was still confident to take on all comers. It was kind of an interesting way of being. And at some points I kind of questioned it, but I liked that she was confident.
Yeah, I don't know though. So the thing is, I didn't actually like her all that much. And I don't know. I think that confidence is interesting, but I viewed it a little bit more as like obsessive, sort of, or like there was a point. I think it was like episode 3 or 4 where like I turned to my boyfriend who I was watching with, and I was just like, "Do you like her? Are we supposed to like her?" Because I couldn't tell. Like, which speaks, I think, to the character, how it's written, how it was acted. I love that it's for, brainy women. I like that a lot. But I feel like she wasn't very likable. And I don't know if that speaks to her being like somewhere on the spectrum or, just being so obsessive and all-consuming that nothing else necessarily mattered or could kind of reach her. And I don't know if that was like a quirk of her growing up, but I didn't like her all that much.
Yeah, I think that is part of the character is she's supposed to be outside of wanting to be liked or caring about that. Maybe that's how she can get as far as she did. I did hear from people that this had sexism in it, and I was actually surprised that how little sexism it had in it. I thought there wasn't very much compared to what reality must have been like. So I read some articles that called this like a fantasy. Rather than a historical fiction, it would be called like an alternate history.
Yeah.
Because it's like what might have and probably would have happened if sexism weren't so bad as it was.
There was an article that I read just the other day on CNN about how 3 of the top shows right now on Netflix are all stories that deal with women rising in areas where they don't traditionally rise in. And this was one of them. And the other one was The Crown, which is obviously in politics. And the other one was Mrs. America, which I've never seen. But the one thing they say in this one is that in the Queen's Gambit, they don't show nearly as much active sexism or misogynistic behavior as they do in the other ones. In this one, it's much more nuanced and tame. They list only a few examples of where she is treated differently for being a woman. I think those points are pretty noticeable in the story, but it's interesting that it's not nearly as provocative that way that I expected it to be.
I agree. It was kind of easy for her to get into it, even though she was maybe the only woman there. Like, she didn't have that much pushback. Like, I can imagine probably if it was like actually taking place in the time, they may have not even let her sign up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Back to your point, Ariana, too, you were saying about whether or not she's likable. And I did find her to be very likable, but I found her to be very emotionally distant and very difficult to emotionally connect with. And you talked about her maybe being on the spectrum or something like that. And I didn't think of her that way until you said that. So that's interesting for me to sort of wrap my head around. But I did think that she was very much reacting to the abuse and the difficulty she had growing up with her mother's issues and then with her own drug abuse issues, that I think she was very reserved and wound up very tightly because of that. And I think that might make her less likable, although I kind of found it the opposite, where I thought that made her more compelling.
Well, it's a coming-of-age story, so you're going to want to see the main character grow and develop as a character. So yeah, there were definitely points as she sort of spiraled out of control in her early 20s where you don't really like her that much because she's the main protagonist. You're sort of forced with her whether you like it or not. And I do think that towards the end we do see some growth from the character, and that's very satisfying to see because she was so stubborn in many ways leading up to it.
Yeah, I think by the end, I did end up liking her. But I think it's so interesting because I think I love like books and movies where you oftentimes don't like the main character. Sometimes I enjoy hating them more than I enjoy liking them. As long as there's someone I can like there, so there's like that I can do. I oftentimes love hating a character. But with her, I couldn't tell because I was like, I didn't know if it was just me who wasn't connecting with her, or like, because I think you can be compelled by a character and want to watch them still, but strongly dislike them.
Yes.
And I don't know if I strongly disliked her. I mean, I did, like I said, like her by the end, but I just couldn't tell if they wanted us to like her or not because I didn't, and I didn't know if it was just me.
I was interested in the other characters and how likable they were or what initial impressions were, because I kept finding myself expecting like diabolical characters or really like characters to like manipulate her or use her in ways that I thought would be jarring. And when we first see the janitor, he's in the basement and he's kind of creepy and distant, and I expected him to do something bad, and he does nothing bad. And then, later I expect the mother to be like sponging off of her, and the mother doesn't really do that. And she does that a little bit, but not enough to make her evil or diabolical in any way. So there were all these characters that I kind of kept expecting to do evil things. And even like the stepdad, who is kind of a bad character, but he just disappears, he leaves. And, so it's interesting that I think they purposely set up some of that drama in there so that we're watching to see what happens. But they, I think, also purposely don't carry it through to make those characters take over the story.
Yeah, I will definitely agree that it was very, very relieving to find out that Mr. Scheibel was not a creep, the janitor who teaches Beth how to play chess, because without putting too fine a point on it, most stories that involve a weirdo loner janitor hanging out with a young girl in the basement of an orphanage are not heartwarming. Like, they don't end well. That those are bad optics. And when we do find out, I guess this is a spoiler, but when we do find out towards the end that he's been looking on Beth's career with pride, keeping a shrine of all of her newspaper clippings and like reprints of her chess matches, it's just so sweet. I was very touched by it. And yeah, similarly, I think both her mom and her stepmom are such interesting characters in relation to Beth, because they both have tremendous gifts that they haven't been able to share with the world in the way that Beth can with chess. Her biological mom has, I think, a PhD in mathematics. She's a brilliant mind, but she's also got the same sort of mental instability and substance abuse problems that she passes on to her child. And her stepmom is this talented pianist who never plays in public, trapped in a marriage with this... I would say he's probably the show's one actual villain. He's like just this selfish, uncaring trash bag with no redeeming qualities. And it's kind of clear that their marriage is soul-crushing. But at the same time, it's also very clear that she deeply cares about Beth and is as good a stepmom to her as she can be. I also did find it interesting that they sort of raised the specter of her becoming a stage mom. Because at the very beginning, like once the financial rewards of competitive chess make themselves known, she kind of perks up. But I thought it was really cool that when she suggests maybe she can have a small manager's fee, Beth just doubles it. Like, that moment spoke that they definitely had a bond that wasn't about money.
I thought it spoke, which I also liked, I thought it spoke to them mutually using each other. So yes, I think that I think, I don't know if it was tainted by my dislike of her character, but but I thought, obviously that they had a bond and that it grew definitely during that time. But I thought when it was first starting, it was a mutual kind of using of each other. Yes, her stepmom stepped in and was like that show mom, but it was Beth's ticket to play more chess. And it was Beth's ticket to not have to go to school. And it was Beth's ticket to go meet these incredible chess players. So I think to her, it was the stepmom was asking for a small manager's fee, but it was you're also doing me this favor, and I like you, so I'm going to give you this too. So it was an actual bond, but then also you're using me, I'm also using you.
Something transactional. Interesting.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the earlier characters too that are in the orphanage, because I love Jolene's character. And I also expected the orphanage leader to be diabolical in a bad way, and she comes across overly sweet in the very beginning and then kind of disappears. And then there's also I don't know if it's the intern or whatever that keeps taking Jolene away. And so it's kind of an interesting tension between those characters. And I just felt like Jolene was a really great character that really carried a lot of that early part of the series.
I found, remember Harry Baltic?
Yeah.
And you start out just hating him, and then he also comes back, and I remember that scene where he says he realizes that he just doesn't love chess as much. And that just kind of warmed my heart. Like he became okay accepting kind of his status quo. When at the beginning he was the one who was going to be a star or whatever.
Yeah, I did like his character a lot. And he was so obsessed with it. And I think even to the point where he had all those books and he was trying to teach her. And it's just like sometimes life eventually takes over. I thought it was interesting too. I can't remember if it was him or someone saying like, you don't want to be the best too young because what are you going to do after that? And I think that's kind of like with him, he was doing quite well, but then like he kind of admitted like, you know, he accepted his status quo. But then also if you peak too young, like where do you go from there?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of that tension because as far as I know, the Grandmaster title is something that you hold on to for life. So once you achieve like the peak of chess, you're just sort of a chess celebrity, but how far does that go? And we see that a lot with Borgoff, the world champion player who Beth faces off at a couple of points over the course of the series. We sort of see press conferences and interviews with him where he'll say, I'm getting older and I'm still passionate about chess, but maybe someone will beat me, you know, definitely foreshadowing their matchups.
I like that point you brought up too about, you know, where it's like they're these world champions of chess, but you know, that only gets you so far, or like that world of chess is so narrow. Like there was a scene where it was like the US Open of chess or whatever, and they were playing it in like a school on plastic boards, you know, and they're like, like some of the greatest chess players in the world are here. And they're just playing in like a shack, essentially. I mean, not a shack, but, you know, like not to the standards that these people, their reputation gains them. Because no one knows.
I wonder if the success of this show will elevate the world of competitive chess to be a little bit more of a spectator sport. That would be interesting.
Yeah. Well, I have heard one side effect of the success of the show is that there does seem to be a major resurgence in chess interest. Like the statistics I read were Google announced twice as many searches for chess. New registrations to chess.com are 5 times higher than normal. And searches for chess sets on eBay are up 250%.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. But what I'm wondering is, are people just lockdown crazy? And is this a fad that's going to die out quickly? Or is this show going to be responsible for like a new wave of long-term chess players? Or maybe the next Beth Harmon.
I mean, think about it. All of us watch the show, and the consensus is love the show, still dislike chess.
One thing that the show did really well was that it visualized the game of chess in a way that watching it on the ceiling and watching their moves and things like that, which was kind of intoxicating. And it made me think, I have a friend who I play poker with, and he loves watching poker tournaments on TV. And I don't really like watching them on TV. I just play the game. So it was kind of interesting to think of that as a comparison of people play poker as a spectator sport now. And I could see chess taking off in a similar sort of way if they promote it well and do it in an interesting way.
Yeah, after watching this show, I think I saw this YouTuber who, I don't know how to say it. It's like Edgadmeter, and he replays and commentates and analyzes the chess games throughout the show. And it's pretty interesting how he does it, but a lot of what he's doing, it's still kind of over my head. Like, you can see everything, but it's still too fast for me.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that's interesting about chess is, like, you never can stop learning about it because there are so many different techniques and ways of going about playing it.
Yeah, it's true. It does seem pretty interesting, and I think trying to guess what someone's going to do, like that whole aspect of it, just kind of like trying to guess what the move is going to be and then finding out if you're wrong or right. And they did make it interesting. Like in the show, like watching those games, it seemed pretty interesting.
That's exactly what I have the biggest problem with chess is trying to figure out what people are going to do and sort of plan around it. I can sort of plan my next move and have a couple plans in place. But that never works because I'm only thinking of one or two things and I'm not thinking about it enough. But it's interesting. One of the things that it was a quote from the show that I really loved because it made me view chess in an entirely different way. And one thing I always forget about chess is that it really is a battle, and each of the pieces represent something in society. And the quote from the series was something along the lines of, "It's a whole world in 64 squares." And if you view it like that, this is not just like checkers with pieces that move in different directions. It's a whole world. It's got knights and bishops and societies and things like that. And if you think of it that way, it's more like Risk than it is like checkers.
Mm.
Yeah, but I still don't want to play it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think actually talking about it more, I don't want to play it even more now.
But I also appreciate watching it, and the people that do it. I think it's really amazing when you see it masters who've mastered something so complex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did see in the credits of the show that one of the consultants on chess is Gary Kasparov, the only chess player who I could fit in a crossword puzzle. The guy who famously beat the computer at playing chess.
Oh, wow.
So he was on hand to ensure that everything was accurate to a very high standard.
That's pretty cool. I wonder if any of the actors ended up picking up chess afterwards.
I was reading on IMDb some of the trivia, and one of the things they asked Anya Taylor-Joy is if she had ever been a chess player before this, and she said she had zero knowledge of chess before she took on the role.
I did sort of want to ask, because you mentioned a little bit about the fashion of the show and the set design, because I do have this kind of obsession, fascination with the 1960s. But if you go by some of the 60s shows that are out, like The Queen's Gambit or Mad Men or Marvelous Mrs. Maisel or Call the Midwife, they're also kind of opulent and sort of like a best case scenario for what the 60s was. Like sometimes things look a little ugly and decrepit in Call the Midwife, but if you watch any of those other shows, like nothing's ratty and run down. It's like an idealized version of 60s decor and architecture and fashion. It's like really lovely to watch and luxuriate in, but it's probably not 100% accurate.
Well, she had a good bit of money, though, from these chess competitions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see her outfits getting more and more kind of expensive looking.
Right.
But yeah, I wonder if people who lived through that era look back on it and have nostalgia just watching the show, or if they're like, no, that's all wrong.
I really enjoyed watching this show for that reason. I was born in 68, so I was not really alive at the beginning of it, but I do enjoy going back to like the late 60s, early 70s on TV and seeing the cars that I remember from a kid driving around and the way houses and yards and everything looked back then, which is definitely different. And I thought this show was very true to how it kind of looked, at least in my suburban 1970s world that I grew up in. But you're right, it is a very sort of cleansed view. I thought there was not a whole lot. And even in the orphanage, I thought it was very clean and safe. And I kind of think orphanages back then were particularly not as nice, especially if they're drugging the kids, which they were in this one. If they're making decisions like that, then there are probably other bad things going on behind the scenes. But we didn't really see that. So I think it was kind of whitewashed in a way. Didn't bother me until I actually thought about it afterwards, though.
Yeah.
I mean, for an orphanage, I think they can portray it how we'd actually... I mean, not that we want to see how it's actually portrayed or, like, historically accurate, but I feel like with that, they didn't have to make it so clean or whatever. But, like, I think if I'm watching a TV show or movie or even, like, reading a book, like, I don't love reading or watching something that's just, like, every day. Or, like, I'd rather see something that's kind of lavish and, like, fun to watch. And I don't think it's a bad thing if they've exaggerated something from that era.
I like the other chess players' clothing too. The guy that carried the knife and always wore the hat and stuff like that.
Oh, Benny.
He was great. I loved his clothing outfits because he was clearly trying to be something he wasn't. You know what I mean? And I thought that was kind of fun.
Every time I saw him on screen, I thought someone is going to do a great Benny cosplay one of these days.
Yes, I thought he was great. I really enjoyed his character.
Yeah, I did too.
He probably annoyed me the most.
That character is also a really good foil to Beth. Like, he's kind of similarly sarcastic, similarly sort of cynical about the chess world.
As obsessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was just as obsessed as her, because that's the thing. Well, I think, one, he was just as obsessed as her with the game, and then two, he was very obsessed with himself, I think, right? Isn't it where she was talking to that other woman who used to date him, and she was like, oh, no one can date Benny but himself. Something along those lines. She was like, no one's more into Benny than Benny.
You think that would be the same of her as well? I mean,
I don't think so. I don't think she was necessarily into herself. I think with her, so why I thought maybe she was on the spectrum, which I think is, like you brought up, is probably more emotionally tied to her past, like growing up with her mother and the orphanage. But I think hers is that she doesn't know how to connect to people. His, I think, is that he doesn't want to, or he's too busy connecting with himself.
I think if anybody was perfect for her, it would be him. But yeah, I don't know that anyone would sort of be good enough.
Yeah, I think that they were too similar to actually be compatible in many ways. Whether he's not compatible with anybody because he loves himself or not, I think in some ways they would drive each other crazy because of how obsessed they were and how they manifested their obsession. And maybe he manifested his through his narcissism and she manifested hers through her addictions. But I think they would have a hard time with each other. The other love interest is with the chess player journalist that comes in and out of the story quite a bit. And I found him pretty likable, but I thought he was a little too pretty.
But he's gay, right?
I did get that impression.
I thought that he was playing both sides. I think he cared for her in a way that was romantic, and I don't think they ever did anything to make you disbelieve that he cared for her that way, but you also could tell that there was something going on with the photographer. But that's kind of one of the things I like about this. It's ambiguous. Like, what is really happening there? And that's kind of like real life. That can be the case.
Yeah, I like that too. I think where you said kind of where it was an alternate reality, I think it was ambiguous even about kind of her, because she had that relationship with that woman kind of a little bit, or there was that connection between them two, which, I mean, I love how ambiguous and how free everyone was, but I think if it was truly how it really was in the 60s, I don't think that would have been the case. But then maybe it would have still been kind of on the down low, so who knows? I mean, I don't know. I didn't know that.
Yeah, some of the things that happen in this show, I'm not sure if they're historically accurate, but they're sort of like a wish fulfillment. A lot of times, even though it's not a true story, I found myself wishing that this was based on a true story because, there's good sportsmanship and the good guy wins. And
Yeah, I think especially these days, we don't want to hear the story that's been told all the time. We want to hear the story that's not been told.
Yeah, it's an appealing underdog story. And when they kind of show throughout the series that Beth is becoming sort of a minor celebrity, it totally makes sense because she's got it. She's got the charisma and the interest to make people who don't care about chess care about chess.
Mm-hmm. And like you said,
but I'm still not going to play.
No. I think we all love an underdog story.
Yeah.
Well, what about, how much of her charisma, we talked about before, her confidence playing chess throughout almost the whole thing was really intriguing to me. But at the same point, she does have a lot of major flaws as a human being in terms of her addictions and things like that, and her ability to connect with people. And, so it's really interesting that I think she's able to put that aside and put up a persona when she's in the realm that she's comfortable in that is really charismatic. I think that's probably true of a lot of celebrity people, that outside of the spotlight, they're probably not as together either. But I think it was really interesting to see kind of both sides of her.
Yeah, because I don't know if the true extent of her behavior becomes publicly known to the extent that she's like the bad girl of chess. But a lot of times you do see that in celebrity culture where someone who's sort of overindulging themselves gets this aura about them that maybe they're great because they're abusing substances. Beth's sort of increasing substance use and abuse over the course of the show was interesting, maybe not always realistic as well, because at least at the beginning, it seems like the only things drugs do for her is make her play chess better. She gets these mysterious tranquilizing pills and she plays chess better. And then she drinks a martini and a beer and she plays chess better. and then she smokes a joint and plays chess better. And it's like, is that really what those drugs do? It's not, is it? Maybe we're just following Beth as an unreliable narrator, but we also don't see her really slur her words or fall down or get mentally foggy. The effect of these controlled substances just sharpens her mind. Maybe the only bit of the show that really fell flat, in my opinion.
It sort of sends her to a place to be able to visualize things in a way that we're led to believe that the drugs are helping her.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably argue that she gets better at chess because she gets better at chess. And maybe she thinks she does because of the drugs, but she's probably getting better at chess because she's thinking about chess all the time and studying it and practicing it in her head. So that's what I think led to her getting better. I agree that they don't show a lot of what normally happens to alcoholics and drug addicts when they go really deep down into that muck. And so she kind of emerges less scathed than I think she probably would have if she was really as impacted by it as she should have been.
Yeah, the main outward effect of the drug use seems to be that really extreme eye makeup that she wears towards the end after sort of having the bender soundtracked by the song Venus. And it's like, that works on Twiggy, but that doesn't work on you. I'm sorry.
No, that's true.
Yeah, that was distracting.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't realistic. You're right.
I would think also that chess being something that requires such mental focus and such attention to detail and planning and keeping track of a lot of different things in your mind, I would think that drugs and alcohol would really impact your ability to do all that in a way that it may not impact your ability to do other things that are simpler. It was even less realistic the more we talk about it.
Right.
They started to set up that parallel between her and the other girl from her high school. We see them walking away out of the store with bottles and everything. And that's maybe a way that her life would have gone without chess. But we can only imagine about what happened to the other girl.
I kind of forgot about that whole story, there were all these little side stories that kind of just, that's interesting.
Yeah, I really liked the first time that she met up with the girl that she went to high school with and has a newborn child, and they're trying to find something to talk about, and it's just not happening, and Beth just can barely contain her contempt for her, and it's a striking scene, and probably one that wouldn't have made it if this was a movie length. I think that's sort of one of the things that I liked most about it, the pacing of it as a limited miniseries, being longer than a movie, but shorter than a full TV show. Like, it just gave you the right amount of time to be in this world.
Yeah.
And all of the characterizations were very congruent. Like, everyone's personal histories and habits seem true from, every angle. And I think that deepens the show and makes it more realistic and more interesting.
I think people often say the book is better than the movie when they're talking about movies because a book is hundreds of pages long, and a movie they try to capture that in 2 to 3 hours. And It's not enough time to capture as much of that as you can. And the idea of something that's 5 to 8 hours is really a good length of time to capture something book length. You're still not catching everything probably, but you have a lot more leeway in terms of putting more in that is helpful. And so I really felt like this was a good length as well. I really liked how long it was. I wouldn't have wanted it to go a lot longer. I wouldn't have wanted it to be 2 hours either. So,
yeah, I think it was a good length. I think nothing is left. I'm not wanting a second season. I feel like everything was wrapped up well. I mean, I feel like it could have maybe been a movie, but I do like that it was a TV show just because I think it lets you relate to her a little bit more and kind of see different aspects of the story that you wouldn't see just in a movie. And I like that they've been doing that a lot. I feel like TV's gotten so good with all these drama series out. I think it's so great because they're actually able to give it the time that it would have needed. Like Reese Witherspoon is making all these books into TV shows, and it's kind of nice to see it play out how you might actually see it in your head, opposed to oh, they cut that whole scene out, and I would have loved to see that play out.
Or as opposed to a show that just goes on for way too many seasons and just gives you too much of a good thing. I've similarly just been watching either documentary miniseries or drama miniseries because, yeah, there's just something about that length that makes for a satisfying story arc.
The other thing that they did really well with the pacing is I think they made each episode stand alone and cover a certain part of her life in a way that, like, a lot of times when you binge watch something, you watch it one after the other after the other. And I watched these like one episode a day or every couple of days until I got through it. And I felt like each episode stood on its own in a way that was really nice. I didn't mind walking away from it for a day and then coming back and watching the next episode as a standalone episode. I mean, you do need to watch it all in order to get it all, but it was really, each episode was kind of its own part of the story.
And there were different times too, weren't they? I think they weren't all consistent.
Like the shortest episodes were maybe 45 minutes and the longest episode was an hour and 10 maybe, something like that.
I did not even notice that.
Yeah, because I remember watching it before bed and then thinking like, oh, wow, that was longer than I thought it was going to be.
And I guess that's another nice freedom of the Netflix model because you don't have to fit it into like an hour, half hour with commercials format. Like you can just let the story dictate how long the media is. So there's not unnecessary filler or a lack of establishing details that are interesting.
Here we are 60, 70, 80 years into the evolution of television broadcasts, and we're just figuring that out now.
I was happy that it was on Netflix because I find that my most used streaming service probably right now is Hulu. I've been watching a lot of stuff on that. And so I hadn't watched anything on Netflix for a while. So when people were talking so much about The Queen's Gambit, they're like, oh, you have to watch that. I've been like struggling finding something that I've like really wanted to watch. Like right now I'm watching Fargo, which is fantastic. But Queen's Gambit was fantastic as well. But Fargo was on Hulu and not Netflix.
I did want to just talk really briefly about games and gaming and how this might impact the world of gaming. I mentioned before about if this ever becomes more of a spectator sport, but I do want to give a quick plug to the library that we do have a board game collection that people can check out. And I think especially with the way 2020 has gone and people have struggled to find ways to connect with other people from a distance, that gaming is a way that in some ways works really well, in some ways works really poorly. I have connected with friends through gaming during the pandemic in ways that has been really rewarding. And so, one, if you're interested in playing chess, you can check it out from the library because we have the game chess to check out, but we also have other board games to check out. But I'm also curious to hear if you guys do online gaming and what you guys do. I play, like I mentioned before, I play poker. We play Dungeons and Dragons a little bit online and things like that. It's been a lot of fun just sort of revisiting the games that I played a long time ago that I haven't played in a while. And I think watching this made me realize how much I really enjoy playing games, especially competitive games where you're trying to win and in a friendly spirit. And I think it's really fun. So what do you guys think about gaming and what do you play?
I'm in a 2-person household, so we're always like pulling out a new game. And library is great for that because if you don't want to buy something, you can just try it. We've also been doing a lot of online. My husband does a lot of different games on Tabletop Simulator. That's a one-time purchase. We've been hosting kind of a Jackbox game night. It's kind of gnarly with the technology to set up, but we stream with Twitch and people play on their phones and we have Zoom open. So you need a couple screens for that or to split the screen. I heard Among Us is still really popular. I haven't tried it though. Have you guys?
I haven't, no.
I haven't yet. It's something I want to do, especially with the teens. I think it's like a huge rage right now for the teens. I'm a big fan of online gaming as well, or just like gaming in general. So because I am just a one-person household, it's harder for me to play games with people. I think once the lockdown had initially started, I went out and bought a cribbage set because I used to play that when I was younger. It's not similar to chess, but kind of in one of those like weird games that people find boring. I loved it, and so I got it for my boyfriend and I to play, which I have yet to have touched. But I had checked out a few before the shutdown of some of the games that we had at the library, but I use Board Game Arena a lot. I love this game called Seasons, and then since I'm the teen services librarian, I have a program that like I'm a big fan of just calling programs what they are, so it's just literally called Let's Play Games Online, and we play like Jackbox games and Among Us is one I'm going to try. There's also, you can find something online, which we circulate the actual board games categories, which I'm a big fan of, but there's something online where, I forget the site for it, but where it will give you like a letter and then you can look at it and share your screen on Zoom or Google Meet, and people can just write down and then share their answers. And it has a timer and everything. So I'm a big fan of that. I've tried Dungeons and Dragons. Hated it. So I won't try it again. I thought I'd like it. I even got upset because I had some friends who were playing it and I was not included. And so we did like a one-off so I could try it and then realized I do not like it at all. I think it's interesting because I think this time definitely lends itself to playing games online with friends. And I'm really enjoying that.
Yeah, personally, I'm more of a solitary gamer. Like, I tend to play just like Scrabble and anagram type games just by myself to pass the time. But now listening to it, it's been a while since I've actually had a enjoyable board game experience. So maybe I'll put myself on the hold list.
We have puzzles too, which is kind of cool. So
puzzles?
For the solitary gamer, such as yourself, maybe doing a puzzle might be fun.
That also strikes me as a very good quarantine activity. It's long. It rewards a longer attention span. You don't need Wi-Fi for it.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. I think it's nice to go back to kind of pre-technology times, which makes it hard, though, because we're all, for the most part, I mean, like families and stuff, you can do that. But if you're alone at home, it's a little difficult to do.
I had an interesting experience talking about the technology part of it because I just learned how to play spades during the pandemic. And so we've been playing spades online using an app. And at one point in September, when the virus wasn't so bad, I got together and played spades with people with actually a deck of cards. And I realized I didn't have any idea how to keep score. And so it was kind of complicated. It was really interesting. So we've kind of learned to sort of depend on technology, but it's also technology has helped make some games more successful and probably hindered others, but it's cool.
All right. Well, if you are interested in chess, we have plenty to choose from here at the Des Plaines Public Library. We have Walter Tevis's original novel, The Queen's Gambit, available from Overdrive as an ebook. We have plenty of books about chess, which can be found in the 794 section of our nonfiction books. You can check out an actual chess set from our board games collection. And we actually now have free online chess tutoring available through a resource called Help Now. So to access this, you just go to dppl.org, click on Resources up at the top of the page, click on the link to Help Now, and type in your Des Plaines library card number. And then once you're on the Help Now website, if you find the Expert Help column, that's where you'll find chess tutoring as the featured service. And with that, you can chat live to a certified chess tutor Mondays through Thursdays, 3 to 9 p.m. So if you do find your knights or bishops in a perilous position, they just might be able to help you strategize a way out. All right, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you, Ariana, Annie, and David for being here. Thanks to everyone who's listening for listening, and we'll see you next time.